Historically, the Persian Empire once ruled the world. A vast expanse of power stretching from the Aegean Sea to the Indus River, where 60 nations bowed beneath a single banner. But empires eventually crumble, dynasties rise and fall, and that land, Iran, through thousands of years of conquest, reshaping, and renaming, has never ceased to be the epicenter of a power far greater than itself. Today, the entire weight of that historical tide converges upon a strait only 21 miles wide. It is almost inconceivable that a mere 21 miles of water carries nearly 20% of the global oil supply. More than just a geographical boundary. This is a fatal intersection where human ambitions for power and the violent tremors of the earth collide with immense pressure. In a space where every movement is scrutinized by the world's master strategists. Even the slightest fracture in its operation could trigger a catastrophe, turning the prosperity of nations into ash in a single moment of disruption. They call it the jugular vein of humanity. This is the Strait of Hormuz. Positioned 5 miles off the coast of Bandar Abbas at the threshold of the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow passage through which roughly a fifth of the world's traded oil moves each day, Hormuz Island commands a geography that makes it simultaneously one of the most strategically watched and geologically surreal places on Earth. The island is a salt diapir, a 600-million-year-old mass of compressed salt and mineral-rich volcanic rock pressing upward through overlying sediment over the last 50,000 years, folding iron oxide, hematite, gypsum, and volcanic compounds into more than 70 distinct mineral shades, deep crimson cliffs, silver-black beaches ground from crystallized hematite. Purple canyon walls and golden riverbeds carved dry since before recorded history. This landscape does not look unreal because it is untouched. It looks unreal because the forces that built it are still active, still reshaping the surface that 3,000 people have decided to call home. For those residents, mostly Sunni fishermen, whose dialect carries traces of Portuguese, Arabic, Hindi, and Dutch, absorbed across centuries of competing occupation. That geology is not spectacle, but daily material. Women grind the red ochre soil, locally called gelak, into a spice that colors stews and flavors bread, turning mineral survival directly into culinary identity. The Portuguese fort, built from that same red stone in 1507, still stands on the northern shore, its walls dissolving back into the landscape they were quarried from. As if the island has always been in the process of reclaiming what empires attempted to fix in place. Today, warming Gulf temperatures bleach the offshore coral reefs, while a growing tourism economy gradually erodes the very geological formations that drew visitors here. A contradiction Hormuz has always understood. What is worth preserving is precisely what refuses to stay still. Places like Hormuz remind us that the most ancient materials on Earth are not the most stable, and that the communities who learned to live with them understood something about impermanence that the rest of the world is only beginning to grasp. Somewhere beyond the northern cliffs, through the same 21-mile passage, Hormuz has watched across every century of its existence. 20 million barrels of oil move daily. A volume of extracted wealth so immense that its transit defines the geopolitical architecture of the entire modern Middle East. And from which this island, positioned at the precise center of that transit, receives nothing except the view. That absence is not incidental. The same salt diapir that folded 70 shades of mineral color into the surface also saturated the soil and groundwater to the point of complete biological unusability, meaning every liter of drinking water arrives by boat or desalination plant. A structural dependency that functions as a permanent surcharge on the act of living here, one that no geological spectacle has ever cancelled. The fishermen who work these inshore waters before sunrise understand a second arithmetic: the landscape does not advertise. The Gulf their fathers fished is not the Gulf they work now. Its stocks compressed by industrial trawling and by water temperatures that have shifted the seasonal catch beyond the reach of small boat households. The red ochre, the same gelak, ground into cooking pots before dawn. Has been placed under extraction restriction, the intervention arriving not as protection, but as the removal of the last resource the island could sell without leaving it. By midsummer, the population drops by nearly half, not because of tourism, but because the working-age residents have left for wages the island cannot generate. a departure that repeats itself each year with the quiet regularity of a tide, leaving behind the very young, the very old, and the landscape itself, which continues producing its colors indifferently, requiring nothing from anyone, as it has for 600 million years. That investing stretching 96 miles along the northern edge of the Strait of Hormuz and covering more than 575 square miles. A surface area larger than Bahrain and Singapore combined. Qeshm is the largest island in Iran and the only UNESCO Global Geopark in the Middle East, a designation earned not through administrative ambition, but through geological necessity. The island sits at the collision boundary of the Arabian and Eurasian tectonic plates. A 25 million year compression that has folded sedimentary rock over sliding salt layers and produced a landscape that simultaneously presents the interior of a salt cathedral, a canyon carved with ancient water wells, and a mangrove forest thick enough to shelter nesting flamingos from the open Gulf. Namakdan's Salt Cave, the longest salt cave on Earth at more than 4 miles in extent, was formed within a salt dome whose root reaches 12 miles below the surface. And its crystalline interior, pink, crimson, cobalt, contains formations older than the Cambrian period, older than most terrestrial life itself. For the 148,000 people who live on Qeshm, the landscape is not a geological exhibition, but the foundation of a working life. The island's boat builders still practice lenge construction, a UNESCO-designated intangible heritage craft in which ocean-going wooden vessels are assembled entirely from memory without blueprints, using techniques transmitted across generations of seafarers who once connected this coast to India, East Africa, and China. The Bandari dialect, spoken here, carries trace vocabularies from Portuguese, Arabic, Hindi, and Swahili, each layer deposited by a different century of maritime contact. Women wear the borga, a beaked mask covering the lower face. Not as ornament, but as functional sun protection, developed over centuries of open water work in an environment where UV exposure and salt wind are constant occupational conditions. Qeshm became this way through two kinds of force, geological and imperial. The island's position at the convergence point of two marine ecosystems the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman made it a target for every power that understood what the strait controlled. The tension it now faces is simultaneous. Rising Gulf temperatures bleach its coral reefs. Tourism infrastructure strains a geopark whose protected status depends on minimal intervention. And the Lengecraft is slowly losing the next generation of builders to mainland employment. Places like Qeshm remind us that scale and antiquity do not guarantee survival. And that the most complete records of geological time are often the most fragile when measured against the pace of a single human generation. Positioned just 3 miles from the international shipping lane, through which an estimated 21 million barrels of oil transit daily, Larak is the smallest of the 3 strategic islands flanking the Strait of Hormuz, smaller than Hormuz, quieter than Qeshm. And sufficiently close to the principal tanker route that its elevated position functions as a natural observation platform over one of the most economically critical water passages on the planet. The island is rocky and steep, rising abruptly from the Gulf's shallow, warm floor. Its shoreline dropping into water that retains equatorial heat long enough each year to produce one of the strait's most disorienting natural phenomena, bioluminescence. On still nights, from late summer through autumn, phytoplankton concentrated near the surface by the Gulf's restricted circulation produce waves of cold, blue-green light that replicate the motion of the sea in pure luminescence. A coast that generates its own illumination without any input from the grid or from the moon. For the small fishing community that has always worked this island, the biology of the glowing water is inseparable from practical life. The density of bioluminescent bloom correlates with warm, still conditions that also concentrate the schooling fish on which night fishing boats depend, making the light both spectacle and signal. Homes here are built from compacted earth and coral aggregate, constructed with walls thick enough to manage the extreme thermal swing between December nights that can reach 50 degrees Fahrenheit and August days that regularly exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit. A thermal range that requires architectural response rather than mechanical climate control. Larak entered strategic significance early Portuguese navigational charts from the 16th century identify it as a waypoint for vessels crossing from Hormuz to Muscat. And that significance has never diminished. Today, its proximity to sensitive, strategic infrastructure limits development and tourism alike, preserving by strategic restriction what other Gulf islands have lost to commercial pressure. Its reefs remain largely intact. Its bioluminescent density is undiluted by coastal light pollution, and its fishing community continues operating within boundaries set not by tradition alone, but by the same geopolitical logic that has always determined who is allowed to approach this shore. Places like Larak remind us that invisibility is sometimes the condition that best preserves what visibility destroys. Separated from Qeshm's southern coast by just 1.2 miles of Gulf water, Hangam occupies only 13 square miles of terrain, rises to a maximum of 348 feet above sea level, and supports no paved roads, no hotels, and fewer than 650 permanent residents. A settlement pattern that has remained largely unchanged across several centuries of Persian, Portuguese, and British territorial contests. What makes Hangam geologically distinctive within the Hormuz archipelago is a 3-1-mile coastal perimeter where phyllosilicate mineral deposits in the sand catch and scatter sunlight with enough intensity that the beach reads as metallic at low tide, silver, and then near white as the angle shifts, a surface that appears manufactured rather than geological. After dark, phytoplankton blooms in the bay produce the same bioluminescent glow found near Larak, a cold blue light drawn across the water by the movement of waves. For the fishermen and artisan households of Hangam, adaptation to this environment has produced a specific cultural economy. Women here are among the only female fisherwomen in the Persian Gulf, setting out before dawn in small wooden boats to work lines targeting barracuda and spangled emperor fish. While shore-based artisans convert shell waste into jewelry sold through one of the Gulf's last entirely traditional island bazaars. The Zar ceremony, a ritual of hypnotic drumming and collective trance practiced along this entire coastal region. Is still performed here as a method of collective psychological recalibration under conditions of isolation and environmental stress. A practice that predates formal medicine's arrival by centuries. The contemporary pressure Hangam faces is ecological. Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphins that congregate in the bay between Hangam and Qeshm from autumn through spring are increasingly disturbed by tour boat traffic during peak season. A pattern that correlates with declining surface approach frequency. The Silver Beach has been placed under visitor restriction following mineral extraction by tourists who misidentified the phyllosilicate sand as a collectible. Places like Hangam remind us that the most precise ecological archives are often held by communities too small to appear on most maps, yet too embedded in their environment to be replaced by anything that comes after them. Located 12 miles off Iran's southern coast, Kish is a nearly elliptical coral island covering 35 square miles with an average elevation barely above Gulf sea level and a climate defined by one overriding reality: the Persian Gulf traps and retains heat with the efficiency of a shallow thermal basin, producing summer air temperatures that regularly exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit and a year-round humidity that makes the island feel enclosed rather than open. A landscape of brilliant turquoise water and bone-white coral sand that sits inside atmospheric conditions more closely resembling a greenhouse than a shoreline. Beneath the island, running 52 feet underground, lies Quarried, a 2,500-year-old qanat system, originally constructed to filter rainwater through successive layers of fossil coral and clay, purifying it by mineral contact alone before delivering it as drinking water to a population that had no other freshwater source. The ceiling of this subterranean channel is composed of fossilized coral reef material dated by Munich University researchers to between 53 and 570 million years old. A stratum that records, in stone biology, the history of the seafloor on which the entire island now rests. The people who built the qanat understood an engineering principle that modern desalination plants reproduce at enormous energy cost. That the geometry of coral filtration, given sufficient depth and time, produces water pure enough to sustain a city. Above that, underground infrastructure, a succession of civilizations built and abandoned harire. A trading city from the 8th century CE whose coral stone ruins still stand on the island's northern edge. And then rebuilt commercial life entirely, most recently in 1992, when Kish was designated Iran's first free trade zone. The Greek cargo ship Kula F, built in Scotland in 1943, and finally run aground on Kish's southwest reef on the 25th of July, 1966. Has not been moved since, its rusting 446-foot hull sitting in shallow turquoise water at sunset, a structure that looks, depending on the light, like the remains of empire or the beginning of a reef. The tension Kish now navigates is between two layers of its own identity. An island whose 2,000 500-year-old water system represents one of the most elegant, low-energy engineering solutions in history. And a free trade zone that receives 12 million visitors annually, each arriving with demands that the Khanate was never designed to accommodate. Places like Kish remind us that the infrastructure of survival and the infrastructure of consumption occupy the same ground, and that the distance between the two is rarely as comfortable as it appears from the surface. Positioned 112 miles west of Bandar Abbas in the open Persian Gulf, far enough from the Strait of Hormuz to escape its institutional density, Lavan is a low-lying island of 17 square miles, whose geology a compressed anticline of limestone and evaporite. Places it directly above some of the Gulf's most productive hydrocarbon reservoirs. Its landscape is constituted by the contradiction this creates. Chinkara gazelles move freely along beaches of pale, compressed coral sand beside holding tanks, pipelines, and the infrastructure of Iran's offshore oil refining operations, a visual juxtaposition so extreme that it renders the conventional categories of natural and industrial landscape functionally meaningless. The Gulf here is warm enough through most of the year to support coral reef systems directly adjacent to the refinery's marine outfall. A resilience that is less reassuring than it sounds. For the community that inhabited Lavan before the oil economy defined its function, the island was something else entirely. A center of pearl diving so significant that its Bandari-speaking divers were known across the Gulf trade network for their lung capacity and their ability to read the bottom topography of the pearl beds without instruments. That economy collapsed definitively in the 1930s, when Japanese cultured pearl technology eliminated the commercial rationale for natural pearl diving. Across the entire Gulf, and what replaced it on Lavan specifically was not transition, but substitution. The same geographic position and the same deep water access transferred wholesale to the logic of offshore oil extraction. The daily reality of life on Lavan now moves in shifts. Refinery workers rotating through assignments from the mainland. Fishermen working the open Gulf beyond the refinery's exclusion zones. And a dwindling older generation whose oral knowledge of the pearl beds has no institutional home and no market application. Places like Lavan remind us that the geography that makes a place valuable to others is rarely the geography that made it worth living in. Located in the eastern Persian Gulf, within Hormozgan province, Shidvar is an uninhabited island whose coral sand, beaches, and water clarity are superficially indistinguishable from the private resort imagery that defines high-end Gulf tourism marketing. Except that Shidvar has no resort, no jetty, no overnight infrastructure, and no human community. A condition maintained not by regulation alone, but by a population of Persian horned viper, dense enough that the island acquired its colloquial name Snake Island from mariners who learned. Across generations of navigational trial, that the beach that looks most accessible is also the most occupied. The vipers are not aggressive by disposition, but are abundant enough and the island is small enough that landing without professional preparation translates directly to envenomation risk. A biological security system more effective than most administrative ones. That biological defense is precisely what preserved the ecological conditions that make Shidvar internationally significant. The island is registered as a Ramsar wetland site and functions as one of the most critical nesting grounds for the hawksbill sea turtle in the Persian Gulf. A species listed as critically endangered globally, whose nesting success depends specifically on undisturbed beach access during the laying season. The same beaches that the vipers defend from casual human incursion are the beaches that the turtles return to annually from distances of hundreds of miles. Navigating by magnetic field to the specific latitude and longitude where they themselves were hatched. A fidelity to origin that requires the nesting site to remain structurally unchanged across decades. The contemporary pressure facing Shidvar is not from tourism, but from warming Gulf waters that are progressively altering the thermal gradients that determine sea turtle sex ratios during incubation. As Gulf temperatures rise, the proportion of female hatchlings increases. A biological response to thermal excess that, if sustained, will eventually skew the population beyond the threshold of reproductive viability. Places like Shidvar remind us that the most effective form of conservation is the one that required no human decision to begin. And that the most dangerous future belongs to places we never thought we needed to manage. Sitting between the provinces of East and West Azerbaijan in northwestern Iran, Lake Urmia was once the second largest hypersaline lake on Earth, an 7-mile-long inland sea, occupying 2,000 square miles of the Iranian plateau at an elevation of 4,180 feet above sea level. And is now, depending on the season, either a shallow red brine or a white salt flat so extensive it is visible from low Earth orbit, having lost more than 90% of its water volume since the mid-1990s through a combination of upstream dam construction, agricultural diversion, reduced precipitation, and accelerating evaporation. What remains visible in satellite imagery is one of the most literal color metaphors in contemporary environmental science. When spring snowmelt from the surrounding Zagros ranges temporarily restores freshwater input, the lake turns deep green. When summer heat and upstream diversion reduce it again, increased salinity triggers a bloom of Dunaliella salina. A salt-adapted microalga that produces carotenoid pigments as a photoprotective response, turning the entire remaining water body blood red, a process documented in NASA imagery and described as a biological warning signal encoded directly in color. For the communities of the Azerbaijan plateaus whose agricultural economies have depended on Lake Urmia's water table for more than 3 millennia, the lake's decline is not environmental news, but lived reality. The black therapeutic mud that once drew visitors from across the region for its proven anti-inflammatory properties is now accessible not by boat to mid-lake sandbars, but by walking across a dry salt crust that extends for miles. Former marinas stand on white salt plains, boat docks end in air, and the brine shrimp, Artemia urmiana, an almost endemic crustacean that form the base of the lake's food web, exists in densities too reduced to sustain the flamingo, pelican, and shorebird populations that historically defined the lake's ecological identity. Lake Urmia did not decline by accident. Its trajectory followed the same infrastructure logic that has reduced the Aral Sea, the Dead Sea, and dozens of endorheic lakes globally. Dams built for agricultural development blocked 14 of the 16 rivers that fed the basin. Irrigation canals diverted what remained for wheat and grape cultivation, and a 6-lane highway causeway built across the lake's center in 2008 disrupted the already restricted circulation between the northern and southern basins. Accelerating salinity stratification in ways that were understood by hydrologists before construction began. The $1.3 billion Urmia Lake Restoration Program launched in 2013 with joint funding from the Iranian government, UNDP, and the government of Japan. has produced partial, unstable results. Above-average precipitation years temporarily replenished the lake, offering satellite imagery that appeared to show recovery. But modeling indicates that even full implementation of all restoration measures may be insufficient to return the lake to its pre-1990s surface area, because some geomorphological changes are now irreversible. Places like Urmia remind us that the most ancient natural systems are not the most resilient. They are often the most sensitive, and that the first sign of collapse is almost never the moment it becomes impossible to reverse. Iran's Persian Gulf is often reduced to a single image: a contested strait, a geopolitical pressure point, a region defined by what passes through it, rather than by what lives within it. Yet the reality that persists beneath that reduction is something far older and far more textured. A civilization assembled across millennia on salt domes and fossil coral, on bioluminescent bays and mineral soil, on wooden ships built from memory and underground rivers filtered through stone, on the unbroken coexistence of industrial infrastructure. And ecological fragility, all of it animated by communities who understood, long before the rest of the world arrived to observe them, that survival in an extreme environment is not a crisis to be managed, but a condition to be inhabited. These are places that by any modern standard of stability or comfort should not function as they do. Yet they endure, not through certainty, but through the accumulated intelligence of generations who had no other option than to understand exactly where they lived. As climate pressure dismantles the assumptions on which contemporary infrastructure was built, as water bodies turn to salt, as coral bleaches, as the thermal logic of entire ecosystems shifts faster than adaptation can follow. These islands and this disappearing lake begin to look less like peripheral anomalies and more like early documents of a future that is arriving unevenly, but arriving everywhere. What the Persian Gulf already knows about living at the edge of habitability, what Lake Urmia already knows about losing what cannot be restored, what Hormuz already knows about building culture from the minerals beneath your feet, none of this is local knowledge anymore. This is not where the story ends. It is where it was always going to begin: Unreal Iran.